Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I am always so excited to have you join us each and every Monday that we come together. So, wherever you are, whether it's nighttime, daytime, morning time, it's a good time. And I want to welcome Amnon to our show, who's our producer. I'm welcoming him. I mean,
Hello.
how you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah, everything
Waiting for
going
that
good.
sun to come back.
What son?
I know.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
on
Where is
strike.
it?
I think
I have never in my
it's
we're
ridiculous.
in North Carolina, but I don't know what it is like all over the place, but I have never in my life
Yeah.
seen as many days with rain, and I'm sure there are plenty of places in the world that can use the water.
I mean, everybody
So
can use
everybody
it, but
can.
still.
But it's been a lot of dark days. But anyway, we're bringing in the sunshine
Yeah,
today, right?
absolutely.
Okay, so each week we come here, and the name of the show is Breaking Free. And our mission is to bring you the most brilliant people out here that are having experiences, that have a tool, a technique, a strategy for freedom that they are happy to share, and we are certainly happy to learn from them so that we can take those freedom steps in breaking through, breaking free from whatever it is into our greatness. And today I'm really excited because I have a dear friend here who's become a dear friend because this is his second time here in like a month because he's so great that, and it's such an important topic. What we put in our mouth and how we take care of ourselves. I mean, what is better than that? So, Howard Jacobson is here once again to talk to us about myths and our food and research, and he's wonderful. So, he is with the plantyourself.com. He is a wellness consultant. He is here to empower each of his clients to make the best possible decisions they can make for their health and wellness. So here he is, Howard. Hey,
Hey, Marilyn, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I forget. Should I look at the camera or you?
Both. I
Okay.
mean, look at me anytime you want, but definitely look at the camera because everybody
Okay.
out there is going to get
Right.
jealous if you're only looking at me.
Gotcha.
And we want to share the wealth.
Well, I did shave today, so
Yeah, I
you,
noticed.
you let me take the paper bag off for this show. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. So, Howard,
Yeah.
what are we going to talk about?
I'd like to talk about the healthcare system.
Okay.
And your introduction, you talk about breaking free, and
Yes.
that's the context of the whole show. And I think people don't realize how easy it is to not be free when you get involved in the healthcare system. That sounds like maybe a strange thing for me to say since I'm sort of in the healthcare field more or less. But one of my main jobs is to teach people how to protect themselves from the medical industry because we think of the medical industry as a very charitable place, a place where people have our best interest at heart. And it's true for individuals, for most doctors and nurses and health practitioners I know do have people's best interest at heart, but the system itself is rotten.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very, very, very careful. It has its place, but it's essentially another industry trying to make money. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today in broad terms.
Okay, that's a great topic. And I'm sure there are plenty of you out here who have questions, who have experiences, who want to know something. And so please feel free anytime you like to call in. You can call into 919-518-9773, landline, whatever. You can also chat with us in our chat window. You can ask questions, you can engage, whatever you like. Just put your name underneath the video, nickname is fine, and join in there. And also, if you want to Skype in with us, you can do that as well. Just computers, number 2K voice, computers 2K voice. So, okay, so it's a big subject. So, where do you want to
Hmm.
start?
Well, let's start with cars.
Okay.
So if you wanted to buy a new car and you went to a dealership or you went online, you understand that everywhere you go, there'll be salespeople whose job it is to sell you the car.
Right.
And you would expect that every salesperson, no matter how knowledgeable or ignorant or how ethical, like you understand that their job is to sell you the car that's going to get them a commission. So, I have a VW diesel Jetta. So I think about this a lot because the salesperson who sold it to me is a sweet guy. He didn't know he was lying about, but I went to see him a couple weeks ago, just, how things going. I wanted to make sure he hadn't, thrown himself off a bridge, but he's still very optimistic. He's talking about the new gas, the VW gas powered cars, which hadn't yet been implicated in the scandal. And he's still, everyone understands that if you go to a salesperson, they're going to try to sell you the car by highlighting all the benefits of that particular vehicle or that line of vehicles, and they're going to downplay the downsides. They're going to, if Volvo, they're going to talk about safety as
Right.
opposed to gas mileage. VW talked about clean fuel and the stopping power. So everyone's got their competitive advantages and disadvantages, and that's what they're going to try to get you to focus on. And medicine is exactly the same thing. So one of the things that doctors do is that they highlight the benefits, the possible benefits of every one of their treatments, of drugs, of procedures, of surgeries, and they brush all the negatives, all the side effects, and all the risks under the rug. And that's fine if it's, if we understand that there's VW, there's Mazda, there's Toyota, there's lots of options we could go to. People know the names of all the car companies that they could buy. But we don't realize that medicine is just one branch of wellness, and they are trained to prescribe pills, and they're trained to do procedures. And if your problem can't be solved by a pill or a procedure, they have nothing to offer you, but at the same time, they're still going to promote the benefits and downplay the risks.
And that term, one branch of wellness, really hits home. I think that's a really important. I mean, it's a big picture. It says a lot because it is only one branch, right? It's only
Right.
one branch. I mean, you can shop around different branches.
Yeah, and it doesn't even make sense for most people. Like, so we go to the doc, you feel bad, you go to the doctor, and that's like and the doctor will prescribe something. That's everybody's expectation, and so that's the first line of defense. And when you think about it, it's crazy. So we've got, however many millions of people in this country are on statins, which are drugs to lower cholesterol that have been proven in studies to reduce your risk of severe cardiovascular events. The question is, first of all, by how much? Are the risks worth the benefits? And in fact, does it make sense to put people on statins as a first thing? So in other words, if someone says, I have high cholesterol, do we say, oh, that is a Lipitor deficiency? Right? Does anyone think that we evolved to have a Lipitor deficiency? Or is it perhaps a deficiency of fiber, a deficiency of phytonutrients, and an excess of saturated fats, animal fats? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's so scary on some level because when you think about what you just said over that one little category, it's amazing because you don't think about all those possibilities. It's hard to take the time, many people to take the time to even look for those possibilities. They hear one thing, it's one category, let me just take care of that. When it can be so many things. It's scary.
It is scary.
I mean, I'm scared.
Well, when you look at the statistics of how many Americans who've reached my age, which is 50, I know I look 17, but
You do, definitely. I was going to say 16. Yeah.
or act anyway. But when you look at the percentage of Americans, who are on multiple medications, 5 or more. So I just went on healthcare.gov to see what I could do in terms of improving my health insurance, and you have to go in and put down for each of your family members what you expect them to be, a light, medium, or heavy user of healthcare. And so for all of us, I put down light user, and I looked at the definition, so they're going to help you decide if you're a light user or not. The definition for light user was 3 or fewer prescriptions, ongoing.
Ongoing.
So if I'm just taking Lipitor, a beta blocker, and some anticoagulant or something like that, which is very, very common, or let's say a statin, an antihypertensive,
Right.
and then something for my gastric problems, which are caused by
It's gonna
the first
have it.
drugs.
Yes.
That's 3. I'm a light user already. So that's already, I'm considered a light user of healthcare if I'm just on 3 drugs. And so, why have we gotten to this point? Well, you know what? If you go to the VW's dealership and you have a good salesperson, then you'll end up with a VW like we did.
Right.
And so people go to the doctor because they think of the doctor as having a monopoly on real health care, and the doctor prescribes pills, and everyone says, okay, well, so that's what I'll do. And when you look at the whole system, you can see why it's set up that way. And, and doctors say, well, but everybody wants the pill, right? Do you remember A Few Good Men?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that, the line, right? Where Tom Cruise is cross-examining Jack Nicholson's character, Nathan Jessup, and he's trying to goad him into revealing, that what he's really feeling and not stop being so guarded. And finally, he yells, tell me the truth. And he gets purple in the face and says, you can't handle the truth. And that's how doctors feel about patients to a large extent. They say, yeah, we know that if they ate better and they stopped smoking and they exercised, that they wouldn't need to be on all these drugs, they'd be healthier, but they don't like to hear it.
And why is that?
They don't do it anyway.
Why do they think that we don't want to hear that?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is my friend David Katz, who's president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, calls it the parable of the tiny parachute. So I'm not sure if you were ever in the paratroopers, or if you have friends who were in the paratroopers. So you need a parachute of a certain size in order to survive the jump, right? So if you give a bunch of people tiny little parachutes, like margarita glass parachutes, they plummet out of the plane, they hit the ground, they die, and then you say parachutes don't work, right? So there's something in medicine called a dose response, and drug companies spend a lot of time and energy figuring out what's the proper dose to give someone to the medicine so that it's enough to cure or relieve the symptoms, but not so much to do harm. Well, there's a dose response of education too. Mm-hmm. So if the doctor smells of smoke, is overweight, is fatigued, has bad skin, has low energy, and says, you cut back on the cheeseburgers and maybe hit the gym. So that's a very tiny parachute. And then the person goes back and doesn't do it. Like, it would be a miracle if the person actually did it. It had that sort of, you have a burning bush in the desert and most people just walk by it and don't listen.
So this is the thing, though, and this is one of the things that I think you're working to do with what you do, and I definitely am working to do it with what I do, is to help give people bigger parachutes, right?
Well, yeah. So, if a doctor would say, I really have looked at the literature, I understand the power of a healthy lifestyle to prevent and halt and even reverse most of the diseases that kill us in the West, and I'm going to get serious about this. Well, first of all, most of them don't know how to make money at it. So I know doctors. I know local doctors. Our family doctor, Jonathan Sheline, is a doctor who understands this. And the question is, how do you make money at it? He does like evening events. So when he's still stuck in a system where insurance pays for pills and procedures and visits, it doesn't pay for broccoli. It doesn't pay for going to a workout class.
Right.
So one thing is the tiny parachute. The other is a feeling that I think doctors have, that if they say that your diet is part of the solution, then people internalize that as saying, well, you're telling me it's my fault I got sick. And so I think, and I'm sure you come across
That's
as a
so
coach.
true. Yes, it's very true.
That there's a difference between blame and responsibility.
Very true.
And most people don't make that distinction.
So it's so interesting, because we really kind of need to open up our ears. I mean, we are to empower ourselves to really listen, to really hear what's going on, and not to make these assumptions that we are at fault, but that we are the cure. We have the power to do some of these things and make decisions for ourselves without turning it over and all that kind of stuff. So I want to help people have a bigger parachute, bigger understanding, empowerment. So that's what you want to do. So what are you suggesting people do?
Okay. So one of the first things is to understand that your interactions with the medical system are are potentially dangerous. So what do I mean by that? That if you look at things that are free, right? There's a lot of free screenings. There's free tests, and this is seen as a public good, right? So they're being charitable. You can go into the hospital system and they have free blood pressure screenings, or free breast cancer screenings, free prostate screenings. Well, screening it's seen as preventive, right? So we're going to prevent disease by screening. Well, the first thing is that screening is not prevention. Screening catches disease, it doesn't prevent disease. You can say it prevents it from progressing, but then the question is, does it? And when you look at studies, when you look at large populations and you do a study and you say half of the people are screened and half of them are not screened, the question is, does it save lives? And typically, it doesn't. Breast cancer screening doesn't save lives. Mammography does not save lives. You have to screen 200 women or 2,000 women for 10 years to save one life.
Explain that.
That means the difference between if you take 2,000 women and you screen them for 10 years, and then you take another 2,000 women and you don't screen them at all, there will be one fewer death in the group that was screened. So now lives are important. That one person is important, but on the other side you have what are the risks? And you have tremendous risks of mammography, not least of which is an almost 50% false positive rate. So for the women who are listening, or people who have women in your lives, what does it do to you when you get the test and then you get the call a few days later that says, well, we've detected an abnormality. Now what happens? Next thing is a biopsy. Now I see myself as a cancer patient, a cancer victim.
Oh yeah.
So, and here's another example of the car salesman mentality by the medical profession, is that they use a statistic called 5-year survival rate. And they'll say, well, people who get screened have a higher 5-year survival rate than people who don't get screened. If you just think about it for 30 seconds, if there's a cancer that's so slow growing and you catch it 5 years earlier, it wasn't going to do anything, it wasn't going to kill you, but all of a sudden, because you've caught it 5 years earlier, you have a much higher survival rate. But it's only because you caught it earlier, it's not because it did anything to improve your health.
Right.
So there's a lot of, so you want to be educated about, well, what are the risks and benefits of screening? People think screening is the greatest thing ever, right? You go and get screened, you get a mammography and they say you're clean, you're happy. If you go and get a mammography and they say we found a lump, and then it's biopsied and it turns out it's cancer, you're relieved that it was caught. That thing was growing inside you. So there's no negative feedback to screening. And you have the disease groups, all these people, really, really well-meaning people who race for the cure and run for the cure and bake donuts for the cure and buy pink fried buckets of fried chicken for the cure. They're being co-opted by the pharmaceutical industry, who are putting a public relations halo around their fairly useless and harmful activities.
Yeah. I mean, we've had people on doing, what is it, with preventative things for young girls to do to prevent from what might happen in the future. Vaccines for this and vaccines for that, and it gives me the chills.
Right. Well, vaccines are something I really don't want to go into because
that's a big subject. That's another show.
It's another show.
Another show.
And it's very hard. I don't lead with vaccines because people are very irrational when it comes to it's a topic that it's very hard to have.
Sure, it's a big
to have rational conversation about, to actually look at evidence. But in general, that question of is our problem that we have a vaccine deficiency, or my 7-year-old daughter has the BRCA1 gene, so let me as soon as she develops breasts, we're going to cut them off to give her a long life. When you look at the numbers, when you just look at the science, it's insanity. And you have celebrities who are like Angelina Jolie, who's lauded for her courage in coming out and talking about her breast cancer gene, which is also, by the way, a pancreatic cancer gene, but I think she still has her pancreas. But well, she had opted for this amputation, and she's being very brave about it and bringing it up, and yet you have other celebrities who talk about other things that the medical establishment doesn't like. Let's say like Tom Cruise talking about psychiatry, or Jenny McCarthy talking about vaccines, and they're labeled as irresponsible. So again, it's an industry protecting its own.
Right.
And you know, VW, yeah, I mean, aside from the diesel thing, like they make good cars, I think. You know, plumbers are useful, roofers are useful. The problem is only when they step outside what they're capable of, and they try to tell you you don't need anybody else. And that's what happens with medicine. It's taken over other aspects of our lives, like exercise, like food, like wellness, like meditation, stress reduction, and if we don't do those other things, we always end up in the medical funnel, and we typically get worse, not better.
And those are all branches of medicine. Is that what you'd say?
I'd say
wellness.
they're branches of healing.
Of healing.
Medicine
Yeah.
is one branch. Medicine is very good in two situations. Medicine is what I would do if there was an acute accident, right? So I wouldn't tell people to have, you know, broccoli and rice when they're being driven in an ambulance to the emergency room after getting hit by a car. You know, that can wait. I would say, you know, get me the best surgeon.
Pain kills, pain
Right.
medicine,
Yeah,
right there.
give me all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
For acute conditions, Western medicine is unrivaled. It's also very good if you have not paid attention to your health and you're now at the point of you're having your heart attack. That's when bypass surgery tends to save lives. So as a last resort, and for, you know, a small percentage of the population who have rare genetic abnormalities, Western medicine does a terrific job. But for the rest of us, the 95% of people who are using healthcare, it's because we've defaulted to medicine instead of doing other things that would have been better.
Yeah.
I want to take it back to the parachute, and it may be out of, and it's not, bigger parachute doesn't mean better. I mean, when I jumped, it was huge, and we still hit the ground like rocks. You had to roll in. Today, they have them, they're a lot smaller, and they stand up when they, I mean, it's almost like you just jump off a step. So I think engineering a way to somewhere, or engineering your medical or your preventative or your lifestyle to your specs is more important than you just take, hey, let's take a big thing and put it over him, so that
Right.
will definitely save them,
But
or
I
it'll
think,
make them feel better. Does that make sense?
yeah, but I think you want to take a look at this, at your capacity. The parachute is like your capacity for
Right.
being able to handle and exploring information.
That's what I was saying.
Yes.
It's out. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
that's
exactly
your-
what you meant.
Right,
but-
that's the capacity. Is that you have this container that you're big, that you can say, okay, here's the answer here. Now let me go and look here, or let me find this
It's
one. Let me
definitely better
explore.
than
Let me
the
be
little
open-minded,
tiny- yeah.
open-minded to be able to, you know, have a broader sense of things, as opposed to, this is what the doctor's telling me, and I have to go listen.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's
So
right?
that's again saying
Yes.
that again. It's you need to engineer it, to build it, to shape it to your needs and the way that you see things. I mean, if I'm obese and I weigh 500 pounds, the doctor will say, well, go get a what do you call it, lap, you know, gastric bypass or whatever. But if all along I was engineering my way of the way you live to do it moderation, it wouldn't have been I wouldn't have needed such a big thing.
right. It wouldn't be so drastic.
And it will work. So yeah, I mean they don't I don't think they put enough on getting you from point A to point B, as in growing up to adulthood and all that, as much as they put into, oh, now you're an adult and you're huge, you're gonna have to get
Right.
cut.
Well, I have a lot of doctor friends, and I ask them about their education, not just what they learned, but what the big unspoken messages were. And the big unspoken message in medicine is human beings are basically lemons.
Lemmings.
lemons.
Oh, lemons. I thought you said lemmings.
Lemon. We might be that too.
That's c- I'm
But
a
you know, it's
lemon.
like a, you know, like
Yeah.
there's stuff that's going to go wrong with us, and the doctor, the whole purpose of medicine is to fix the things that are wrong with us. So you see that if you go to the hospital and you hear the doctors talking to the nurses, they'll say, you know, the gallbladder in room 202. So they don't think of us as people; they think of us as medical problems, and they're trained that the human body is going to break down. It's inevitable. Most doctors are sick; they're on drugs themselves. So the assumption is that we are broken machines and they're mechanics. So there's, you know, like a car mechanic, you know, I wish doctors were more like car mechanics.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to the car mechanic and your engine is messed up and they say, well, are you putting in diesel in this VW? You say, oh no, I'm just using unleaded. It's much cheaper. They'll actually tell you to change. They won't just say, well, we'll keep fixing
And
your
I
engine.
think the assumption is we're going to break. I think that's sad. I think the assumption is no matter you're going to break. You're going to get sick, you're going to break, you're going to this, you're going to that. No matter, you know, almost the message is it doesn't matter. You're going to break.
Right, and and that's the world that we're all living in. So we don't, as a society, what I'm trying to first and foremost give people is a different vision. So if you're in a society and everybody's getting sick, by 40 we're on our downhill. By 50 we're on a dozen meds. By 60 I'm going to have my angioplasty, 2 or 3 of them. In my late 60s I'll have my first heart attack, or I'll have a bypass surgery. By the time I'm 80, I'm an invalid in a wheelchair. By the time I'm 85, I'm in a nursing home and I live until I'm 93. Well, that's a hell of a life expectancy. It just, you know, but it's not much of a life. And so if everyone thinks like that's normal, so when you look at other cultures, when you look at Sardinia, at Okinawa, when you look at other places in the world where people live long, healthy lives, you can, you know, you'd see, well, that American trajectory would be considered tragic. So the first thing I want to do is give people a vision that you can get well. Now, I have a lot of friends who have, you know, adopted the dietary and lifestyle things that I promote, and they go back to their doctor after like 6 weeks, and the doctor can't believe it. And they show me their lab work, and the doctor's written in big letters, "Amazing, keep it up. I don't know what you're doing, but that's incredible." Well, that's great that they're enthusiastic, because a lot of doctors are defensive about that.
Very.
But it's sad when you think about it if someone goes back to the doctor and the doctor is shocked because they've never seen anyone get better before. Right? Because you don't give people pills to make them better. You give them pills to stabilize them and help them live with the symptoms. Meanwhile, the disease process progresses underneath all those pills and symptoms. So when a doctor sees someone get well, they don't have any mental framework for it. They think it's like, you know, spontaneous remission. It's considered miraculous and unexplainable.
I have lots of teeth issues. And I went to the dentist. I don't know if I mentioned it when we were here, but I have lots of teeth issues from autoimmune, all kinds of stuff, and I have had lots of surgeries. And I went to the dentist and had surgery and went for a checkup, and he wanted to give me a Z pack. And I've heard, it just gives me the chills, and I did not want to go on any Z pack. So I went to our local naturopath, homeopath store, and I got toothpaste that has collateral zinc or something. I don't know, something special in the toothpaste. And my teeth my gums feel terrific. No Z pack, and because I have so many issues. I've been biting my cheek all the time, and I had this thing. Well, it's gone away. It's practically gone away, and I'm like, I did that just by buying this little thing of toothpaste. Just because I went there, I asked them. She said, "Oh, I got something perfect for you," and I took it, and I'm like, I was amazed. I can't even pronounce what's in it.
What did the dentist say?
Well, I went to my other dentist. It's funny you should ask, because I went to my dentist who didn't do the surgery, just my regular dentist who just for a cleaning this week, and I brought it with me because I was so excited. He didn't even listen. They're not listening. He didn't even listen to me. He didn't look at it. Okay, good. Walked out. And honestly, but I don't need proof. I have the proof. I'm living with the proof. And I am shocked that it could work that well, that fast. Just a little something. So there are all kinds of things out here. That's why this is what you're saying is so relevant and so important for people just to listen. That we have choices, we have options.
Right. And so for some things, there may not be a lot of research around whatever the toothpaste is that you're taking, but I'm almost certain that there's no reason to think it would do harm. So let's,
Give it a try, right?
So there's a whole range of options that we say we don't know, and those are a double-edged sword. So if someone is diagnosed with a disease that Western medicine can't do anything about, they've got a terminal cancer, they've got an autoimmune disease for which we have no particular treatment or cure, why wouldn't we tell people, well, try this? We don't think it's going to hurt. It can only help. And we know the placebo effect is the most powerful thing in medicine anyway. But my problem with things like that is when and this is one of the downsides of, let's say, being like anti-doctor, is that we tend to be like pro-alternative. And most of the alternative world is no more evidence-based than the medical world. So so then if, let's say, your teeth were not due to autoimmune, but let's say due to eating like chocolate and hard candy all day. And then they say, well, what we're going to do is give you this special toothpaste instead of saying, well, stop eating the crap, brush your teeth more.
That's a very good point.
Right? So that
Yes, very good point.
that's what I was thinking when you were talking about the parachute, that yeah, we definitely want to explore efficiencies in parachute design, but if the problem is the ropes between the parachute and the
Right.
jumper are breaking, let's fix that first.
Okay, so now take us to the next piece. Like you brought up a really good point about stop eating the chocolate. So how do you know? Like I guess I knew that it wasn't from chocolate. I know. I mean, I know enough about my condition to know. So what else would you tell me, or somebody else that's
Well, so somebody needs to be a diagnostician. And to be a diagnostician means you have to bring two pieces of experience together. One is your knowledge of the way the world works, of your branch of reality. So if you're a medical diagnostician, you need to know biology, you need to know how disease processes work, right? So my co-author for my first two books on health, T. Colin Campbell, likes to talk about the fact that telephone poles seem to cause cancer, or seem to cause heart disease, because the more telephone poles in a country, the more heart disease. So he says, obviously, telephone poles cause heart disease. Right? That's clearly a correlation. They're both caused by the Western lifestyle, but so we don't have any sort of explanatory mechanism. So the diagnostician needs to understand explanatory mechanisms. So we know that sugar can rot your teeth. So that's
right?
The question is the mercury in your fillings problematic? Well, we need to study the effects of mercury. Is the mercury in your vaccines problematic?
Okay, so what you're saying seems like daunting, because then there's like, what do I do? I mean,
Well, but that's
okay.
not for you to do. That's
It's not for, okay.
I mean, if not everyone is going to be as an expert on every aspect
Okay.
of health. So that's why we have experts. That's why we have science. That's why I'm not anti-science or anti-medicine.
No, you're not really. I'm listening to you, and you refer to this doctor as my friend here, and this doctor is my friend here, and I have a friend who does this. So no, you're not. So
Right. So I mean, I believe in the truth,
Okay.
and science is the best way we have of assessing what the truth is in the physical realm. So I want to understand what's wrong. You need to know the science, and not everybody, nobody knows all the science, but it's pretty easy these days to do research, to do searches, to go to PubMed, to go to medical libraries, to read other experts, and establish here are the causal mechanisms. The second part of being a good diagnostician is listening closely to what the person in front of you is saying, and not just 5 minutes or 10 minutes in an office visit when you're just you're basically thinking about, all right, what script am I going to write to get rid of them, and that satisfies my insurance company so they don't come down on me and wonder why I'm deviating from best practices. But an hour, 2 hours, getting to know you, asking about childhood issues,
are there
asking
those
about
kinds
stress.
of doctors that do that? Spend an hour and 2 hours with
There are some.
Really?
I mean, that's what I do.
That's what
I
you
mean,
do.
I'm not a doctor,
Right,
but
but that's what you do. Well, yeah.
Right.
So this is a good. I mean, we don't. This is a good time to fill in the gap with what you do and what your experience is, so that people understand where you're coming from.
all right. Well, so someone will come to me. Typically, they'll have a health issue. I would like it if people come to me before they have a health issue. Right? I'd like people to come to me when they're well and say, I want to stay well. Make sure I'm doing the right things and help me in case something happens, in case my back goes out, that I don't end up at the mercy of a scalpel happy orthopedist who's going to do unnecessary and harmful operations, that I don't all of a sudden get diagnosed with high cholesterol and go on a path of masking the symptoms while the disease gallops undetected. But people typically come to me with a problem. And so, to some extent, I'm the general contractor. I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe drugs. What I have is a sort of a generalist's understanding. And sometimes you don't want to go to a specialist, right? Abraham Maslow said, if your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So the minute you're sent to a specialist,
Sure.
that specialist, if it's a GI specialist, that person is going to figure out what's wrong with your guts. If you go to a neurologist, they're going to figure out what's wrong with your brain and your nervous system. If you go to an orthopedist, they're going to figure out what's wrong with your knee. And you ever go to a chiropractor and they're like going to fix all your problems by cracking your back?
Yep.
So you don't want to go to the specialist until a generalist has determined that that's the person you should be talking to. So I'm the generalist.
Okay.
And I have a great network of people who do evidence-based practices in the area. And because also a lot of things are interconnected. So if you come to me and you want to lose weight and you're told you're at risk for cardiovascular disease, how many cardiologists or GPs are going to ask you about, are you depressed or anxious? Are you on meds for that? Did you break your ankle and so it's hard to exercise? All these things work together to determine health. Health is a very holistic.
So once somebody comes to you and with, let's say, the weight loss thing, and they answer yes to some, no to some others, what do you do with them then?
So then we determine what their goals are. Because one of the things, medicine tends to be very directive and paternalistic. Like, I'm going to tell you what's good for you. And there's a huge compliance problem, even with pills. Pills are so easy to take, right? But people don't take 50% of their meds, and that's for the good pills that don't have immediate nasty side effects. So there's a huge gap between doctors and patients in terms of what the goals are, what the patient wants. So if my clients come to me, I say, what do you want? I'm here to serve you. Do you want to be running marathons? Do you want to be able to play with your grandkids? What are your health goals? Sometimes I have to help them with a vision to say, this is, here's what's possible. I know you don't believe it, but here are some other people, here are some examples. This is possible. So first thing we do, as you do with coaching, is establish where the person wants to go and what they're willing to do. Then the second thing is, what are the biggest things we can change right now that will give people the biggest bang for their buck? Because that's human nature. If you help someone with a teeny little problem
right.
and it takes a long time, they're not going to stick around to pay you for the good stuff. So we have to, as a marketer, I have to go and find, what's the thing that's going to make the biggest difference? For most people, it's diet. If you change your diet for 10 days, you will feel better. Half of your symptoms will go away. Your blood pressure will normalize. Your cholesterol will normalize. You'll drop an inch and a half on your waist. And this is scientifically
Proven.
validated. This is
10
not
days,
just,
period.
10 days. I was involved with, one of T. Colin Campbell's son, Nelson, just directed a movie called Plant Pure Nation. And one of the things that was shown in the movie was a project I was involved in that took people for 10 days and fed them. Fed them lunch and dinner and gave them breakfast instructions. And it was very, very clean food. And they were given before and after biometric tests, lipid panel, weight, blood pressure, and they were, it was evaluated. And then we ran the stuff up in a spreadsheet. And obviously, this isn't a double-blind, randomized controlled trial, but just those people dropped their cholesterol an average of 25%. And the higher their cholesterol was, the more it dropped. So it was a kind of a regression toward a healthy mean. And we see this over and over again. That it's like someone walks in to the doctor with a headache, and the doctor notices that 3 times during their 10-minute consultation, the person takes out a ball-peen hammer and smacks himself on the head. Right? So the doctor could prescribe headache medication, but it might be better to convince the person to put down the damn hammer.
Right.
And when you put down the hammer, things change quick.
So one of the things that you've said is that you want to help empower people to do the research or to figure out what's good for them. And how do you profess to do that?
Well, so the first thing is to make them realize that doctors don't know everything, that doctors have an agenda, the same way the VW salesperson has an agenda, and that doctors are going to give them numbers that are misleading. So the main one, this is going to sound a little bit wonky, but I think I can explain it in a way that will help people, is the difference between relative risk and absolute risk. So doctors will tell you that drug X will reduce your risk of a heart attack by 50%, let's say, or it will reduce your risk of breast cancer by 50%. And if you hear that and you say, I could reduce my risk by 50%, that sounds incredible. I'd be an idiot not to take that drug. But here's what that means. That's a relative risk. So let's say we've done the study and there are two groups of 1,000 women, let's say for a breast cancer drug. And one group of 1,000 women gets the drug. And another group of 1,000 women doesn't get the drug. And so we unfollow them for 20 years and see what the differential in breast cancer rates. And in the first group, the group that gets the drug, 10 women get breast cancer, or let's say die of breast cancer. And in the other group of 1,000 women, 10 die of, so the group that takes the drug, let's say, is 10 fewer. So that's a 1% difference. So that's a 1% death rate versus a 2% death rate. So what that means is for every 100 women who take the drug, it will help one. And whatever the side effects are, it will certainly affect everybody to some extent. So that's a difference of 2% to 1% is an absolute risk reduction of 1%. So if you say to a woman, this drug will reduce your risk of dying of breast cancer by 1%, and you'll almost certainly get a bunch of side effects, and it may increase your risk of pancreatic cancer. I don't think the woman would say yes to that, but it's called 50% because the reduction is from 2% to 1%, and that's a 50% reduction. And doctors don't realize that they're doing this either because that's how they have been trained. That's most of the information they get after medical school comes from drug reps who are essentially car salesmen with trunks full of samples. And doctors are innumerate. They are not trained to understand statistics. And so they're pushing this information thinking that it is correct. And in fact, the medical system systematically hypes the potential benefit of drugs and systematically sweeps under the rug the known risks and dangers. So the first thing we have to do is teach people how to ask questions, how to look at the original studies, and how to say, okay, look, the difference here was 1.6%, not 39%. And to understand that there's a really important number in medicine called number needed to treat, which is how many people do I have to give this drug to help one person? So a good drug would be 5. If I give it to 5 people, it'll help 1. That's still only 20%. It's not very good compared to,
It's good for the one, but it's bad for the 4.
But
And you don't know who the one's going to be
Right.
either.
But if I tell that to you, then you get to make the decision. There are women who are so terrified of getting breast cancer that they would take that drug that has a 1% improvement. They would, and that's fine. I never tell people what to do. I just educate them on what are the risks and benefits, and whatever choice you make, let's now implement it. So if I then tell you that that changing your diet in your 40s could reduce your risk of developing breast cancer from, let's say, 45% to 10%, a 35% actual absolute risk reduction as opposed to relative, then you say, well, you know what, I don't really feel like changing my diet. I like my burgers. I like my processed meat. Okay, that's your life. That's your decision.
And as a woman, and I am 61, going to be 62, don't have breast cancer in my family. And thank God, really don't have cancer in my family. But I am due for a mammography. I don't even have a gynecologist right now. And the other night woke up and I thought, oh my God, I have forgotten I keep forgetting to do a mammography, right? And I keep forgetting to look for a gynecologist, and I'm avoiding it. And, I hear all kinds of things about, finding this and just like what you're saying. But there's a little fear factor
Sure, there
in
is.
not knowing. And I feel, thank God, knock on wood, everywhere, I feel fine. I don't feel anything.
Hmm.
And so, but I sit back and I wonder, okay, but should I go look anyway? Should I get them to take the picture and check me anyway? But then who wants all that?
Right. It's essentially lead generation. So screening basically is medicine's way of finding healthy people and turning them into sick patients. Because if you look hard enough, you will find stuff. All of us have cancer in our bodies. Cancer is not an alien process. We all have cancerous cells. We also have mechanisms for dealing with them. When it gets out of balance, due to environmental factors, due to lifestyle factors, due to heredity, then things develop to a point where we can recognize it as cancer. But we're mutating all the time. And if you eat a diet high in antioxidants, phytonutrients, you have a much better chance of fighting those mutations and staying healthy. But you know, if you go to the screening, so you can look at sort of the history of screening technology, and it's getting better and better and better in air quotes, meaning so that if we're going to do a biopsy, we can do 9 pins, stick 9 little needles in you, and then look, or we could do 27, and we'd have a much better chance of finding something. It's like playing Battleship, right? The more things you put down, the more likely you are to find something. And every hospital wants the $1 million screening machine instead of the $50,000 screening machine.
Right.
You know, there's no evidence that routine breast self-exam saves lives, but we're in training. Well, if you have no control over something, then you get superstitious, right? You ever see like baseball players before they come to the bat, they're like touching themselves,
Yeah, right.
they're
Do the
poking
same
their
thing
nose
they
3
did
times.
before. Yes.
That's because they're hitting a baseball is one of the least predictable things in sports. And at bat, the best players in the world succeed 3 out of 10 times. So when you're in a situation where you have no control, where you feel like you have no control, you do superstitious things. And most screening is that superstitious thing. And the trouble is that it's actually leading to unnecessary treatments that are making people worse, not better.
Okay. Remember, you can call in. This is a good time. 919-518-9773. You can Skype in with us at computers. That's plural 2, the number 2K voice, or you can join us in our chat. Ask questions, comment. If you have a question for Howard, call in. Just curious about something, we didn't touch upon something that you want to know about, please feel free to call in because, I mean, obviously there is so much to talk about that, that's why we had him back a second time, and there'll probably be a third. So, preventative.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun thing, I think. It's one thing for people to come with specific things, and they're certainly, your process would be they come with something, you talk to some about that, then you would research options. If doctor says this, you take this as an option, then you research other options, right?
Right.
Preventative.
Right. Well, actually, it's the other way around. When someone
Okay.
comes in with a problem and then you help them solve it and they get well,
Yeah.
that's really rewarding.
Yeah.
If someone comes in well and you help them stay well,
It's not.
that's like, I really love my fire insurance, my homeowner's insurance, because you love it when your house burns down. You don't love it as an insurance policy.
Right.
So one of the important things for people to understand is that health is not a goal. Health is a means to life. So instead of focusing on, okay, my blood pressure numbers are good, who cares?
Yay!
Right? You remember that commercial where like people in an elevator saying, I lowered my cholesterol?
Yeah.
How about, I ran a marathon, I played with my grandchildren, I ran for office, I started a nonprofit. So I really want people to focus on
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's right.
on what they do with their one,
That's-
precious life, as Mary Oliver says.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
It's like that's the fun part. The fun part is not being, for people who are unhealthy, when they get healthy, it's amazing. It's like I didn't know that my body could feel
Do you
this good.
see? Do you think people see? Forgetting well, not well, whatever. physically well or not physically well. Do you think people see that, what you just said? They see themselves running, they see them. Do they focus on those kinds of things? Like they focus on the joys, they focus on the possibilities of, running here, doing this, climbing a mountain, whatever it is. Do that people
Well,
focus on that enough?
not enough,
Not enough.
which is why we need life coaches and why people need need role models who are accessible. I can't tell you how many people, like I've written a whole bunch of books, and people are like, I could never write a book. And then I tell people how I eat, and they say, oh, I could never eat like that. I could never. I could never.
I could never.
So, right, I could tell you that I could never eat that way until I did. I couldn't write a book until I could. It's very helpful to have role models. So, like the book that I just co-wrote with Dr. Garth Davis is one of the things that the pieces of feedback I'm getting that people love is his story, because he was a meat-eating schlub who was sick. He was prescribing and treatments and performing operations on people for obesity while he himself was getting more and more fat and sick. He could see his people coming back to him after a year, gaining back the weight, hopeless, and he had to change. And so when people look at that and they say, well, I identify with this person's story, I identify with the beginning of it, maybe I could do what they did. So we don't, it's not so helpful to have role models you could look at and say, oh, I could never do that. But
Well, that's why we talk about these things here, because we want to bring role models. We want to bring the information here that we can talk about, that we can touch, that's real, that, everyone that's listening, whether you're called in or you didn't call in, obviously you didn't call in because nobody called in, but you're listening, right? You're taking it in. And so that's important because this is real. This is a real conversation about real things. And that's what I want to do here. That's what's so important. So you see the role models, the mentors, you see people doing it. I mean, what you're doing in being a wellness consultant,
sounds good.
it's like that.
Till
We don't know what to call it,
till
right?
we have a better phrase.
So because nobody's doing it, right? Is a step or two or three or 10 prior, before, you go to a doctor, or
Right.
when you're in the midst of, needing
Right.
one. Again,
Well, I've spent many years as a performance coach. So I've worked in corporate environments because that's where people feel like paying for performance. And there's I can't think of anyone I've ever worked with where if you don't slow them down and ask them good questions, that they don't get back in touch with some dream. Right? So it's
Absolutely.
kind of to put a big umbrella around this whole thing. One of the reasons that we're so sick and tired in this culture is that we are medicating away our dreams. So we eat food to numb ourselves out because we're not happy with our lives. We eat for emotional reasons. Then we take drugs to make us, psych drugs to make us feel less crappy. And the entire basis of our consumer culture is to get us to self-medicate our unhappiness. And when you give people a chance to say, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Is there some special dream that you have? Is there a special purpose you have? I mean, a lot of people have trouble relating to that question, but if you ask it seriously enough and you give people space, everyone remembers being a kid and wanting to be something. I remember wanting to be left fielder for the New York Yankees.
right.
And then as I grew older, I had dreams. Some of them I feel like I'm moving towards, and some of them I'm too scared to. But there are people who know how to talk to me to kind of remind me what those dreams are. That's why I've switched careers from the business world to working with people around health, because it means more to me to be doing this work. And so if you talk to people long enough and well enough and give them a feeling like, yes, I can do this, I think most people do feel like they have something they want to do with their one wild and precious life.
Right. And there's some wild things that we all can do, and it's possible for everyone. And we see it every single day. I see it every single day, and that's why we're doing this, so that we all. I mean, every time I do this, I get stronger in my wild and hairy, bodacious dreams, and what I know I can accomplish. And we can. I mean, just I had a show a couple of weeks ago about doing a bucket list, and I hadn't even thought about a bucket list. So I wrote. So, but I'm thinking about it, not because I'm going to die, but because I'm going to live. I want, you know what I mean? These
Uh-huh.
cool things, and I'm adding things to my bucket list because it's so cool. But you've got to be able to see these things to be able to want to take care of yourself.
Well, and that's something else that I've come to realize is that a lot of people don't think these bigger thoughts because the foundation of their life is so shaky, and by that I mean their
Right.
health,
Right.
their energy. So if someone's got gastric problems and they're always bloated and they have reflux and they're tired all the time and they're achy, it's very hard. Most people under those circumstances don't go out and try to do amazing things. They're just trying to take care of themselves. So just like bringing Maslow back into the conversation, the bottom layer there, just survival and basic human needs and comforts. When those get fixed, then you can start a cascading effect. Then people say, "Wow, I was a couch potato and now I'm walking a quarter mile a day. What else can I do?" And I was on 5 meds and I'm now down to 3, and I did it myself. What else can I do? That kind of
You
empowerment.
start with something. You know, I mean, I have had terrible stomach pains. I mean, again, I was on a lot of medication as a kid. I've had ulcers multiple times, a very sensitive stomach, and I have now. I mean, what's working for me, or one of the things now that's it's a little something, is I'm drinking a special vinegar, and it's tastes good. It's fruity and tastes great, and I get it from somebody local here, and it's made a big difference. Believe it or not, just a vinegar. I'm doing yoga. My body always hurt. I couldn't bend my knees. Yoga has made a big. So these are the kinds of things that you start with, and I know if you're in pain and in agony, sometimes, like Howard saying, you don't even think you can get off the sofa or that there is anything. But one little thing can make all the difference in the world. Cascade to another little thing, to another little thing. Before you know it, those little things are not little things anymore. They are big things.
That's right.
So I know we're almost out of time, and I can keep on going with this, but tell everyone where they can find you and all that kind of stuff. Now,
Hmm.
promote yourself.
All right. Here we go. So my practice website is trianglebewell.com, and I work with people locally in the North Carolina Triangle area, and I also work with people via phone and Skype, all over planet Earth. So if you go to Triangle Be Well, you can sign up for my mailing list. You can read about it, and if you have questions, just contact me, Howard at Triangle Be Well. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone. No strings attached, no commitments, just to see if it's a good fit and to see if I can help. 'Cause, you know, people want to be well, and they sometimes have trouble believing that it's possible. And so one thing that's sometimes helpful is if you talk to someone who has had experience with people like them getting well. So, if I say, well, I'm just me, I can't do it. But if you talk to someone like me, and it's not a matter of faith anymore. It's a matter of science. It's a matter of personal experience that I know what's possible. I find that confidence can be infectious. Whether you work with me or not, you could walk away saying, boy, I know that there's a bigger thing, there's a better thing possible for me than I thought before. And if you decide that I'm a person that can help you on that route, we can talk about how that would look.
Knowing you have options is extremely freeing and important. So, and just show your book, because this is a really good book. It's conversational, and it's got great recipes in it. So check it out. And final words.
Final words for me.
Anything final?
Um, I would say move toward what feels good. Move toward what feels right. That when you look at the big picture, medicine has its place, but it's not a natural system. When we think about life on Earth, when you think about, what's the right thing for me to do, just start with that question, like, is my problem a blank deficiency? I think it's a very good question to ask yourself. Is or is there something natural that I could do that I'm not doing now that could make the difference? That lifestyle almost always trumps treatment.
It really does. So, with that, my name is Marilyn Shannon, and just a little plug for myself. I'm doing a workshop talk tomorrow from 12 to 1 here in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you're here, you can email me at marilyn@marilynshannon.com. It's about how the genders communicate in the workplace and what we need to do to work together. It's all about energy. So it's very interesting. So give me a holler, Marilyn@marilynshannon.com, or you can find the event on my Facebook page at Marilyn Lipman Shannon. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, for being here. Remember, each week we have fascinating guests, so please come back. I'm No Howard will be back. I want to thank Amnon for doing all of this and
You're
keeping us
welcome.
all straight. Thank you very much, and wish you all well. Thanks again for being here. Bye bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Brook, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.